Good day guys, welcome to another episode of Game Review. Today we are looking at the Lindores Abbey Rapid Challenge, which forms part of the Magnus Carlsen Chess Tour, an online rapid challenge tournament of 15 minutes plus 10 seconds. Today we are looking at the matchup between the Chinese number 1 Liren and the Russian prodigy Daniil Dubov. So before we get started guys, please remember just to hit the subscribe button for more great content. We will continue to follow the Lindores Abbey Chess Tournament as it progresses. So let's jump right into things. Then playing with the white pieces went e4. Dubov responded with c5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, g6, bishop takes c6. Now there's two options. You can either capture with the d pawn or the b pawn. Both provide significant structural changes to the position. Dubov decided to rather take with the b pawn. Castles, bishop g7, rook e1, knight h6, c3, castles, h3, f5, e5, knight f7, d4, c takes d, and bishop e7. So Dubov is looking to play c5 and break up the strong center that white has already set up for themselves. So just to continue, the game progressed with Ding playing knight a3, c5, d takes c. Now this opens up the d file and it creates space for white because of their far advanced e5 and c5 pawns. The pawns are not as well defended as they should be, but being found very interesting ways around this. So let's have a look. Queen a5 got played for some activity on the queen side. Bishop e3. Now queen b4. Knight c2. Now I have to also just note that I looked at this position in quite a bit of detail because it seems like queen d4, which is also the recommended move by the computer, just to have white maintain a slight advantage in the position, seems like a rather good option. But I think what Ding did not like about this option was perhaps the continuation of queen takes d4, bishop takes d4, bishop takes f3, g takes f, knight g5, king g2, and after this knight e6 move, you see that the e5 and the c5 pawns become rather weak, especially under the attack of the d4 pawn as well. So rook d1 is obviously an option to be played here, but it will inevitably leave a lot of the pieces weak, and options like d6 after capturing on d4 open up as well. So I think these are perhaps the reasons why Ding did not decide to go for this position. Instead, he played knight c2 and left the b2 pawn hanging. So Dubov takes on b2, and Ding decided to play knight c to d4 in this position. I just would like to point out for everybody who's wondering, is rook b1 not just a move that picks up a piece? Basically, this move seems like it's attacking the queen and the bishop at the same time. So if the queen moves away, then this rook will capture on b7. But there's a nice intermediate move which is saving black here from losing any material, which is bishop takes f3, attacking the queen. The queen on d1 cannot recapture the piece because this will leave the knight on c2 undefended. So white is basically forced to recapture with a g pawn, and after black takes on a2, it is clear that black has achieved quite a bit in these positions and is probably winning the setup that you see on the board right now. So I think for this reason, Ding just decided to play knight c d4 and bishop e4 got played. Now it might also be a case of, well, can't we just take on e5 and pick up the free pawn on e5, just to point out why this does not work. If black takes on e4, or on e5 rather, knight recaptures, bishop recaptures. And just to point out now that even though black picked up the e5 pawn, white can now play rook b1, picking up the bishop on b7, because this knight is no longer on f3. So there's no longer any intermediate move for black, and he will basically now lose a piece. Once the queen moves, the bishop on b7 will drop. So instead, Dubov decided to rather go bishop to e4, and then continued with rook e2, queen b7, rook c1, rook ac8, bishop f4, just securing the e5 pawn, e6, rook d2, just some maneuvering going on, bishop d5, h4, h6, bishop back to g3, rook e8, a4, a6, rook d3, rook c7, queen d2, bishop e4, rook dc3, queen d5, queen e3, just getting out of the pin on the d file, bishop f8, and now the c6 break. D takes c, knight takes c. Now white is absolutely dominating the open c file. The knight on c6 is pretty well placed. Complete harmony between the pieces. Dubov decides to consolidate by taking the knight on f3. G takes f, queen a2, and queen b6 picks up the a6 pawn for white. Rook to d7, queen takes a6, bishop a3, rook f1, g5, f4, g5, queen c4, offering the exchange of queens, rook takes c4, rook a8, rook a1, rook d3, king g2, rook a6, h5, just securing that g6 outpost, bishop b2, rook a2, rook c3, and now that the bishop is no longer on the a3 square, now it just gently hops into e7, followed by now g6, king g7. This opens up the 8th rank to come down and possibly create some threats along the king side. Rook takes c3, bishop h4, gunning for the f6 square, bishop b4, bishop f6 check, king g8, and now rook c2, gunning down to the c8 square in order for some checkmating opportunities. So rook a8 just gets played to stop any rook c8 tactics from happening. Rook c6 attacking the weak pawns, the base of the pawn structure on e6, and after knight d8, rook c7, knight f7, rook c4, bishop a5, rook c6, rook e8, f3, rook b8, f takes g, rook b2 check, king f3, rook b3 check, king e2, f takes g, rook c8 check, picks up the e6 pawn after knight f8 check, king g8, and knight takes e6 check. Now after king h7, the knight just goes back to f8, back to the outpost, forces the king back to h7, and this pawn on e6 will march. You should note that this knight on f7 cannot move, because if it moves, the rook will simply go to h8, which will be checkmate. At this point, Dubov decided to call it and resign. I have to say, a very well played game by white, very structured, instructive game, and we hope to see some more top-notch action between these two players in the next coming rounds. Guys, we will be reviewing the rest of the games. Please just make sure to comment, like, and please hit the subscribe button for more great content. You can go to ChessGen, our YouTube channel, to follow the rest of the tournament as it progresses. We will be covering the entire tournament game for game. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you soon.